Well, hello, everybody. I'm glad you're here for our Focus Forum for January 24th. We have a great speaker that's going to be covering a variety of different things today. I'll just introduce you. We'll get straight to it. Also, just let me let you know that in the chat, we're going to be putting a workbook that will be available to you so that you can use throughout the talk. So I want to introduce Sam Diaz to you. He and I go back a ways. So we used to be directors on a commercial interiors company a few years ago. And I've worked with Sam for a while, and I could tell you he has a passion for helping entrepreneurs and their leadership get what they want from their business and their lives. He loves working with organizations and witnessing them achieve their dreams. This passion stems from the belief that he can have a greater impact by helping companies achieve their success. And it's something that's not just happened. This is something that I observed when I was working with Sam back in the day. So he helps you see your business in a new light and shows you how to execute using simple tools and principles to identify root causes before they become problems, and places the right people in the right seats and aligns every employee toward the same goals. He specializes in three key areas: vision, traction, and healthy. And I'm going to let him speak to these areas. But with his expertise, I'm sure you're going to be able to look forward to having to navigate challenges effectively. You're going to get some tools. Ladies and gentlemen, Sam Diaz.
Thank you, David. Thank you for the introduction. I appreciate it. We go back a long way, that's for sure. So I appreciate everybody's time. Probably have about 30 seconds to convince you that the next hour or so is not going to be a waste of time. So my simple promise to you today is that when we wrap up today, that you're going to walk away with something that you can use in your business and in your life right after the session. So that's my commitment to you. So if you can share the screen with the presentation.
You could go ahead and hit that share screen button right there, bud.
All right. If I got the right one. There we go. Got it right. So I'll go quickly through the agenda. One second. There we go. So the agenda is we're going to do three things. We're going to get real. And when I say about get real, I want you to get real about your business or what you do. And I'm going to use a tool to set the stage for you to do that. We're going to keep it simple. So what I'm going to share with you today are simple concepts. You know, there's no silver bullets, magic pills, and anything. There's no latest trends. These are just simple concepts, practical stuff that have been proven over time to work in entrepreneurial businesses. And then the last thing on the agenda is get results. So this workbook that David mentioned, I encourage you to open it up and use it. And we're going to go through it. Maybe we won't have time to go through all of it, but we'll apply some of the tools so that you can use some of the stuff and walk away with some of the information completed for your business. So on the Get It Real part of the agenda, I want you to take a leap of faith with me, and we're going to try a little experiment. It might feel a little silly at first, but this will help you prepare yourself mentally so that you're focused on your business, on what you're going to get out of this session. So if I can ask you all, and I know virtually this might not work the same, but I'm going to trust you all that you're going to follow along and commit to this. So hopefully you're sitting somewhere comfortably. You have your feet on the ground, you're in a comfortable chair, and I'm going to ask you to close your eyes. I'll ask you to close your eyes and feel yourself float above your business, float above your organization. There's a mathematician philosopher by the name of Kurt Gödel, who was one of Einstein's contemporaries and proved scientifically that you can't be in a system, be part of a system, and understand how a system works. So what I'm trying to get you to do today is to get out of the tall grass, get out of the weeds so you can see your business in a whole new way. So with your eyes closed, picture yourself looking down on your business with you in the business. So separate yourself from that business. See all the moving parts. I want you to be ready to look at your business with an open mind, critical thinking, so that you can see the opportunities for improvement. So if you're there, please open your eyes. So a little bit of brief history. I won't spend time with this. Some of you might be familiar with EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System. But in brief, everything that I'm going to share with you today was cobbled together by a lifelong entrepreneur named Gino Wickman. And he did this from learning what he did running his family business, working in an EO chapter that he was a part of, and really looking at businesses. And he came to a discovery where he looked at businesses and he saw that 95% of businesses and business people in India and entrepreneurs were really working really hard in their business. Everybody on the leadership team was working hard, dedicated to their businesses, but were letting their business run their lives. They weren't getting what they wanted out of their businesses. And then there was this other 5%, this 1 out of 20 folks that were working hard, but those leaders were getting what they wanted out of the business. They were in control of their business. They were managing the business. The other discovery was that all business leaders, all entrepreneurs, struggle with 136 issues simultaneously. And the big differences in discovery is that the 95% would get together and were never, discuss the issues, but were never able to resolve them. And those 136 issues just kept coming back. But that 1%, that 5%, that 1 out of 20, when they would get together, they were able to solve those issues at the root and have those issues go away permanently. And during that discovery, he noticed that the business owners in the 95% suffered from 5 frustrations. One of the frustrations was control, and I mean lack of control. They didn't have control of their business. They didn't have control of the outcomes. The business was dragging them. It was like a van hurling down a highway at 60 miles an hour, no control, and they weren't able to drive it. The other frustration that these business owners had, this 95% segment, is that there was a lack of profits. They were working hard, but they weren't making enough money to justify their investment time, their monetary investment time, and their emotional investment. They also discovered a frustration with people. So we all have people. We can't have a business without people. But this level of frustration with having the wrong customers, the wrong people on the team, it was an ongoing frustration. So he knew we had to solve for this issue. The fourth frustration is this sense of hitting the ceiling. You're running your business and all of a sudden you hit a ceiling, either a growth ceiling, a capability ceiling, and you get stuck. And then we all know when we hit these ceilings, if we can't break through to them, one or two things happen. Either the business stagnates or the business dies. So you discovered this frustration that all these entrepreneurs had. They hit the ceiling. They didn't know how to break through to them. And the fifth frustration is this sense of nothing's working. So entrepreneurs are always learning new things, going to the latest seminar, hiring the latest consultant, the latest business trend, and applying them in their business, but nothing was working. All these things were frustrating them. So as a result of discovering these 5 frustrations, he started working on cobbling together a system that would simplify how we address these. And the model stems from a discovery that there are 6 key components in a business, and I'll go through them. I'll take a first pass at those 6 key components. And the model starts with your business in the center of it. So your business is right in the middle of this model. And the first key component of your business, of any business, is the vision component. And in real simple terms, that's just everybody aligned, everybody in the organization rowing in the same direction, all going towards the same goal. The second key component that we'll discuss is the people component. In order to achieve your vision, you have to have the right people. We'll get into defining how you define great people and right people for your unique organization. The third key component of any business is the data component. And really the data component is running your business on numbers, on facts and figures, not egos and emotions as sometimes happens in entrepreneurial businesses. The fourth key component is the issues component. And that's just instilling a culture in your organization where anybody at any time can raise their hand and say, we have an issue, we have an opportunity, something's not working, let's get it on the list somewhere. The fifth key component is just a process component. And simply that is everybody doing it the right way, the same way, the best way every single time in your business. And finally, traction. Traction is bringing that vision down to the ground so that wherever you go in your business, you see everybody executing on that vision with accountability and discipline. Gino Wickman says, and we like to say in EOS, vision without traction is hallucination. So we got to bring that vision down to the ground and make sure that it's happening and it's just not a dream. We call this model EOS. EOS stands for the Entrepreneurial Operating System. And simply put, it's the way of harnessing the human energy in an organization and orchestrating all that energy so that it's functioning properly, that people are aligned, and we're all moving towards that vision to achieve our goals. Now, and I'm not sure if on my screen it might be the images are covering the 1 to 100%, but we rate success on a scale of 0 to 100%, with our goal trying to get to 100% strong in each of these 6 key components. Now, we realize that 100% strong in every component is utopia. It's not going to happen. So in actuality, what we're trying to do is get the entire organization 80% stronger or better in these 6 key components of the business, knowing that most organizations are operating at about 20% strong and succeeding in spite of themselves. So as we move forward, we're going to start looking at that workbook that I sent you. We're going to dive into the model. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to dive into the vision component and talk about the tools or disciplines that we use in EOS that you can use in your business. And I encourage you that the workbook that you have, that you use it, you share it. One of the things we do on EOS is everything that I'm going to share with you today, you can get for free. It's all downloadable on EOS Worldwide. So if I don't get to that reference at the end, I just want you guys to know, if you guys go to EOS Worldwide, all the tools are available for free. We're a help-first organization. So you have the workbook and you can download more tools. The first thing we do is we answer the 8 questions. And the 8 questions simply are, what are your core values? What is your core focus? What is your 10-year target? What is your marketing strategy? What is your 3-year picture? What are your 1-year goals, your 1-year plan, your 90-day rocks, and your issues list? So if you open the workbook to that first document, we're going to dive a little deeper into that document. And that document is called the Vision Traction Organizer, or VTO for short. So the first thing I want you guys to do on the call is I want you to picture, if it applies to you, if there's folks on there that have a leadership team on the call, I want you to imagine your leadership team. And I want you to think about the vision. And I want you to imagine in your head, or you know, is everybody aligned on that vision? And typically what we find is it's not that there isn't a vision. We typically find that there is an alignment on the vision. And what this tool helps you do is get everybody aligned on the vision for the organization. And we do it, as I explained, by answering those 8 questions. So the first question we address is, what are your core values? What are your company's core values? The core values of an organization exist. They are there. What typically happens is they're just not discovered. So we're going to do a little exercise together. We're going to do this one together, and I want you guys to think about, and I'll explain to you how we do it. So I want you to think about, in your organization, think about the 1 or 2 people in the organization, those best employees, Sometimes it's referred to as the Mars mission. If you were going to go to Mars, who would you take? If you were going to win the battle in your market, who would you take? So I want you to write down the names of those two people in your organization that you would take to battle, take on that Mars mission. Once you've identified those individuals, think about the characteristics, their values. What do they do? What about them is what makes them special? So what were the reasons that you listed them? So just list a few of the characteristics. And we discover when you have the entire leadership team do that, we discover the core values of the organization, because the core values are there already. We just have to discover them. So if someone would like to share some of what they identified, this would be a good time to interact with the rest of the group. So you can use the raise your hand function, or you can physically raise your hand, and Dan will help identify if there's anybody that wants to share who they identified and why they identified those individuals.
You could also feel free to unmute yourself with the space button if you have anybody in mind. Don't be shy.
And there doesn't have to be volunteers, that's fine.
Patrika, you got somebody?
Yes, I've got two people on our team that I would take with me. I would take Adriana, and I would take Mo. Both of them are genuinely dedicated to the vision and the culture of the business. They're very reliable, with such a pure heart of honesty and integrity.
Fantastic, fantastic. And thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
Anyone else?
Yes,
Anyone?
I don't know if you can hear me. Can you hear me? Can you hear
Yes.
me? This is Daryl. Yes. I would take Pam and I would take Jelly. And it's for me, it's pretty simple. They both are deeply analytical, and I'm demonstrative. So I need some analyticals keeping me on course, and they're both really good at what they do. They keep the business moving in the right direction, and I need both of them on my team.
Beautiful. Thank you, Daryl. As we take the entire leadership team through this exercise, when we work with organizations and everybody goes listing, we start identifying, as was just done here in these two examples, what the real core values of the organization is. And what that helps us do as an organization, it helps us define who the right people are for our organization, who do we want to attract, and at the same time, who do we want to repel? When we're clear about our core values, we know who to attract, and we repel those folks that don't match our core values. As I've worked with organizations, one organization had very, very defined core values, and they never placed them in their ads for recruiting because they were afraid that it would alienate people. And we had a great conversation. I said, but do you want these folks to apply that look at your core values and don't align with them, or find them silly or are critical of them? And the answer was no. So now they include them. And though the number of rejections has gone down, they're beginning to attract the right people. So core values helps you identify who you are at the core, attract the right people, repel the wrong people. Once we've answered that, we move on and we answer core focus. So our core focus has been called a lot of things. It's been called mission statement, vision statement. Stephen Covey calls it voice. Jim Collins calls it the hedgehog concept. We call it core focus because we believe it comes from your core. It identifies what your purpose is, your cause, or your passion. It really describes what you love to do and what you're great at. And once you're clear about that, then you identify what niche you're in. And when your core focus is clear, you know what your sweet spot is. You can stay laser focused on that area and avoid distractions that take you outside of that area. The next question we answer is a 10-year target. The time frame really doesn't matter. Anywhere between 5 years and 30 years, it's that long-term goal that you want to accomplish. It's some number. It doesn't have to be a financial number. You know, for some organizations that's, for example, SaaS organizations, the number of licenses they sold. If you're a property management, you know, how many units under management? There's a lot of different metrics, but what's that long-term goal that you want your organization to accomplish so that everybody in the organization is working together towards that goal? So if we can take 2 minutes, and if you guys take a quiet 2 minutes and think about what's the time frame, where do you want to be, what's that long-term goal? And when someone has something down that they want to share, I'd be happy to let you share that with the group. And think about what would be the right measurement. It could be a financial measure, or it could be some other incremental measurement. It's something that gets you excited about where you can take the business. Sometimes it's called that the BHAG, the big, hairy, audacious goal. Anyone ready to share? I'll give you an example as you guys are thinking. So when Gino Wickman started EOS in 2008, his 10-year goal was to have 10,000 companies running on EOS by 2018. They had a handful at the time. And that big goal was the guiding light that in 10 years, by 2018, he exceeded that number. And now EOS, working with implementers, is working with over 25,000 companies and probably 10 times that of folks that have self-implemented. So who would like to share their long-term 10-year target or whatever time range meets for them?
My target would be to have a solid staff of anywhere from 5 to 7 coaches and be able to have them running either my one club successfully or multiple clubs where I am partially retired.
Excellent. I like that last piece. That's great. Anyone else?
So Sam, this is Patricia Romano again with VHG Printing. On a 10-year scale, I am looking to scale our company and ultimately exit, because in 10 years, I'll be in my 60s. So that is my long-term goal. To get there within a year, I no longer want to be involved in the day-to-day transactions. I'm working on building the right people to sit on the right seat on the bus. And within 3 years, I want to be focusing on other interests outside of our printing company.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you.
Welcome.
Yeah, this is Daryl Andrews. And for me, I'm repositioning my business a lot around self-paced courses. A lot of companies and organizations now, because of the need for hybrid, have their people doing more self-paced type learning. And so you're getting some of our programs on their learning management systems and having people in place to run those so I too can retire, because I am in my early 60s. So I want to get that done so I can have, generate the kind of revenue we want to generate more automatic, because folks will just keep, purchasing over and over again through these automated systems. So that's the hope.
Great. Great. Perfect. Thank you for sharing. Thank you. Imagine if the whole organization was all aligned on that 10-year target. Everybody on your team knew what it was bought into it, saw the value in it. You get the team driving towards it. So you have clarity now of core values, your core focus, what you do best and love to do is clear. That long-term goal is clear. So now what we do is we develop your marketing strategy. Now this isn't a multi-page, deep dive marketing strategy that you might get in a large corporation. This is a very focused, simple marketing strategy. So the first thing we do is we go about identifying your target market, the demographic, geographic, and psychographic of your ideal customer, on where you want to spend your limited time and marketing and sales dollars and efforts. So you're ensured that you're addressing it with the right group. We call it the list sometimes. The way we say, if we have the right target market identified, it works like a filter where you push through all the potential clients, everybody in the marketplace, you push them through this filter, and out comes a list with the name of the company, the contact person, the decision maker, their phone number, their email address, with everything you need with that ideal customer that's right for your business. Once you identified your target market, we go about identifying the three uniques. What are the three things that make you unique in combination? We like to use the example of Southwest Airlines: low fares, lots of flights, lots of fun. Other airlines can have one or two of those components, but Southwest's three uniques were those three things. David mentioned early on in the introduction that in EOS, we work on three things. Those are our three uniques. We work on vision, getting everybody aligned on their vision; traction, bringing that vision down to the ground so everybody is following the vision with accountability and discipline; and healthy, making sure that the leadership team is healthy, they're open and honest, they're vulnerable with each other, because a lot of times you're not. Once we've identified the three uniques, and then we go out and build the proven process. And the proven process simply is just an illustration of what it's like to do business with you, a one-page illustration, a diagram that lets potential clients know what it's going to be like to work with you from the moment they even consider doing business with you to the moment they're lifelong partners of your business. The last thing we do is develop a guarantee, probably 50-50 on our clients, the ones that have a guarantee or not. Really, the guarantee is just a pledge or promise that removes any objections they may have, any concerns they may have about doing business with you. So now we have the marketing strategy identified. Now we start bringing that plan closer to the ground, and we do that with a 3-year picture. Again, this is not a deep dive 3 to 5 year strategy that you might do in a large corporation that ends up being an 80-page document. This is a very focused 3-year picture. Where are you going to be in 3 short years? We identify what the revenue is going to be in 3 short years. What are your profits going to be? Again, what measurables do we want to measure in the business beyond financials that make sense for your business? It might be number of clients. It might be number of coaches. It might be, properties under management, units sold, whatever makes sense for the business that we're working with. And then the last thing we do is this area where you see here, what does it look like? We identify 5 to 15 bullets that people can see, because if you can see it in your mind's eye, the chances of achieving it become so much greater than otherwise. So I'm going to give you another couple of minutes. Don't worry about the revenue numbers. I want you to think about 1, 2, or 3 things that will describe what it looks like if you're successful in 3 short years from now. What would those things be that you could see in your mind's eye in 3 years from now? So I'll give you 2 minutes. Write down, what are those things that you can see in your mind's eye? What paints a picture of what 3 years is going to look like, a successful 3 years from now? Picture yourself on December 31st, 2026. If anybody's ready to share, we'd be happy to listen to a couple of bullets on what that vision is going to look like. What's that picture going to look like in 3 years? And don't worry, if I don't get volunteers, I'm going to volunteer David, so we'll be fine.
Okay, I'll go again.
Thank you, Patrick.
This is Lauren.
Oh, Lauren, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. So I mean, just basically what it looks like for me personally would be more free time for starting a family. and money to pay off debt and build a new house.
Great.
So Sam, it's Patrika again.
Great.
So for me, it would be within 3 years, I want the company to honestly run without me on a day-to-day business, that I do not need to be around. I've got everybody in their place. The second thing is being able to tap into giving back into the community through mentoring, sharing, entrepreneurial efforts that I really enjoy, just really tapping into the things that are shelved right now because I'm too focused on other areas. And then thirdly, I want to be doing some more traveling.
Great. Thank you. Okay. So the important part of having this part of the vision before we move to the traction side of the document is, I'll give you an example. You guys might have heard of the study that was done with Stanford students, where they had a group of students and they divided the room in two, and one group was giving a song like Happy Birthday or Mary Had a Little Lamb, and the other person on the other side didn't know what the song was, and the person that knew the song had to tap it out on their desk, and the other person had to guess what they were tapping out. Can anybody guess what the percentage was of folks that could guess what was being tapped out? So I won't waste a lot of time on this, but it was only 2.5%. And what that teaches us is that a lot of times as leadership teams, when we stand in front of groups and talk about our vision and can't paint a picture, all those folks are hearing is that it's that thump, thump, thump sound from the Stanford study. They hear the words, but they can't see it. So the power of the 3-year picture is when you share your vision with the rest of your team, is you want to make sure that they can see it in their mind's eye. If not, all they're hearing is either that thump, 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 or if we all remember, we're all around from Charlie Brown, is when the teacher would talk at Charlie Brown, that's sometimes what they're hearing. So we got to be able to paint that picture with the vision. So this document, core value, core focus, 10-year target, marketing strategy, 3-year picture, they can start seeing what that vision looks like. So if we go now to the second page of this document, the traction page, now we're bringing it down to the ground. The first thing we do is we do the same thing. We look 1 year out now. We define what the revenue is going to look like. We define what profits are going to be. We define what the measurables are going to be. Where are we going to be at the end of the year? And then we go about and set 3 to 7 goals for the year, not 23, just 3 to 7. When we have 23, when everything's important, nothing is important. So we work really hard to narrow that focus down so that we can identify what is that 1-year plan. And we work with the teams developing that 1-year plan. Less is more always, and that's what we teach in EOS. And then we take it to a shorter time frame. We go to 90 days. We set rocks that are 90 days out. And the term rocks comes from, and you might have heard this, if you have a vessel and you have rocks, pebbles, sand, and water to put in there, if you put the sand, the pebbles, the water, the sand, and the pebbles in first, there's no room for the rocks. So we use the term rocks to help people identify what has to get done first. So we set 3 to 7 priorities for the company, and then we set 3 to 7 priorities for everybody on the leadership team so that they're crystal clear on what has to be accomplished in the next quarter. And then we identify issues. We keep an issues list of all the important things we have to get done. So I'm sorry, I didn't go through the slide correctly. I skipped some of these. So, all right, we're good now. So that's the VTO. That's answering the 8 questions. You have a simple 2-page document where the vision is clear, 3-year picture, 1-year picture. You can clearly articulate it to the company. So that leads us to the second step. The second discipline we teach is shared by all. So if you work as a leadership team and you put this together, but you don't share it with the entire organization, it's never going to get accomplished. So what we always recommend, and we work with companies to do, is that every 90 days, get the entire organization together, get your team together, and do what we call a state of the company business. You share with them where we've been, where we are, and where we're going. You go through the vision traction organizer, reminding them of what's important, what's the answer to these 8 questions, and you get everybody in the organization around the vision. And that's what 100% strong in the vision component looks like when it's operating in a company, when it's happening in a company. The next component is the people component. And in the people component, we look at 2 things. We look at right people, and we look at, first we'll do the right people. So the right people, we use a tool called the People Analyzer. And it's a very simple tool that helps you identify if the folks you're hiring, if the folks in your organization are living the core values. And the way it works is, and these are the US core values, you list your core values across the top. And then you simply list the names of the people in your organization or that you're potentially hiring for your organization. And then we use a really simple method of, are they a plus, are they a minus, or are they a plus minus? And the way this works is, a plus means they're living that core value all the time. A minus would mean they're exhibiting behavior that is not aligned with that core value. Plus or minus, you can't identify either one. You use this tool to sit down with individuals. Sorry, the first thing you do is you'll set a bar. You say, what's the bar for our organization? What's the minimum standard? So if you have 5 core values, you say that the least I can have is 2 plus minuses and the rest have to be plus. Obviously, you don't want any minuses in the bar. And then you use this to see where each of your employees are. It's a great tool. It's a powerful tool where you can sit down with individuals and recognize when they're living their core value. And when they're not, help them identify what they need to do to get back at living those core values, so that you're ensuring throughout the organization, you have the right people in the organization. It's a great tool for when you're hiring also, to make sure that after you've interviewed people about core values in part of your interview process, then you can sit back as a group and say, hey, how do we rate this person against our core values? And that's what right people looks like. Right seats is really about folks being the best at what they do, excelling at their job, having the neurons aligned, the God-given talent to do that job right. And the tool we use to do this is something we call the accountability chart. And we start with structure first. So we work with teams and we ask them to separate themselves from the current business. We sometimes jokingly tell a team, pretend everybody on the leadership team today got fired. So you're no longer in the business. No one has a job in the business. What would the right structure be for that organization? We go out about building the structure, and we start with the basic assumption that every organization has some sort of marketing and sales function that identifies markets, identifies leads, and sales that closes them, some kind of operations function that makes the product or delivers the service or does both, and then some kind of finance function that manages the inflows and outflows of cash, manages acquiring assets, collects bills, sends out invoices. That's the basic assumption of any business, but more importantly, what we do is we go out and make sure we create the right accountability chart for the leadership team of that organization. We also make the assumption that in most just about all organizations, there's a function we call the integrator. That's the person that's the glue of the organization. They beat the drum, they orchestrate to make sure all the functions are working well together. In about half of the organizations we work with, there's also a visionary. This is the big picture individual. This is the person that stays at 30,000 feet, typically manages the big relationships, hates getting into the weeds, avoids the difficult situations. That's better left up, personnel stuff, better left to the integrator. So from that assumption, we go out and determining okay, what are the right seats specific for your organization? So we start with function first. What are the functions that we need? And once we've identified the functions, we start identifying what are the 5 key roles within that function. So this is a sales and marketing function. We would say LMA stands for leadership, management, accountability. So this person's going to have staff. This person's going to be responsible for marketing. They're responsible for hitting the sales numbers, selling, account management. So these are the 5 key roles of this marketing and sales function. So the next step is we start putting people in those seats. So we identify who gets it, wants it, and has the capacity for that seat. So we build the structure, we identify the functions, we delineate the roles for that function, and then we begin to fill the seats, putting people in that seats that are best qualified, that have the get it, the want it, and the capacity to do the job. I give this example here. So, you know, this is a special one for the Houston folks. So we have this position called center, and available to us is Hakeem Olajuwon, and we know he wins face-off. He creates scoring chances. He scores goals. So we start identifying so we can say he gets it, he wants it, has the capacity to do it. That's the right person. That's what gets it, wants it, has the capacity to look like. And we go around filling all the seats on the leadership team. And then we use this tool and we add the gets it, wants it, and we rate individuals. We're looking for all yeses when it comes to gets it, wants it, has the capacity. It has to be all yeses. And once we fill the seats on the leadership team, we go identifying all the other functions in the organization. So we have now a sales manager function that reports to the head of sales and marketing. And what does this person have to do? The sales manager is responsible for leadership management accountability. They're responsible for sales. They're responsible for setting goals per district, big accounts, customer satisfaction. So now that's clear. And we go doing that, and we, at the end, have built out this entire accountability chart for the entire organization, where we start with structure first. What are the right functions? What are the roles? And then we fill the seats. When we do these 2 things, 2 kinds of issues come up. First issue is we have the right person sitting in the wrong seat. So we have someone that lives our core values. They fit the culture like a glove. They're just in the wrong seat. They don't get it or want it. Hopefully there's an open seat in the organization and you can put that person in the right seat. But if you can't, I encourage you to make the difficult decision, because in a for-profit business, we just can't keep people just because we love them. The second issue that comes up is where we have the wrong person in the right seat. So this is someone that's killing it at their job. They do great hitting the numbers in the function they're in, but they don't live the core values. Little by little, they're chipping away at the culture in ways you don't even see. In the long term, they're damaging the company. I urge you to make the difficult decision. When you have a wrong person in the right seat, you have to make a change, because you have to have right people, right seats. You have to have both for a successful company. So as we go through this, and I'm obviously not going to ask you guys to share, think of the names that might be popping up in your head that might be someone that's not living your culture, or someone that is wonderful and you love them, they're just in the wrong seat. What are you going to do about those items? What are you going to do about those people to solve those issues? So 100% strong is right people, right seat throughout the organization. That should be the goal. So anywhere you look in the organization, everybody's living the core values, fitting the culture, and are in the right seats. The next component is the data component. And the data component, as you flip through in your workbook or go in your workbook, you'll go over to the scorecard. This is a line you guys might have heard this quote. If we have data, let's look at the data. If all we have are opinions, let's go with mine. So ideally, you don't want to run a business that we're going with one person's opinions. So the data is all about identifying what are the numbers, what are the key measurables to run your business so that you're not running it on ego and emotions. So the first discipline is a scorecard. So the scorecard is a simple document where you identify what do you want to measure, what needs to be measured every week. So these are examples: weekly revenue, cash balance, sales calls, sales meetings, proposals. What is the goal for that number? So you identify what's the goal, where do you want to be at each week? It could be a cumulative number, it could be a number for that week, but what's the number for that week? And then you assign who owns that. Who owns that measurable? And it gives you a 13 weeks view of your business so that you can see trends in the business. You can identify where issues are, where the opportunities are, where you have to address things. We sometimes say, if you were on vacation on some nice tropical island, if someone handed you this document, could you quickly see how well your business is doing? So think about those of you who have stated that you want to remove yourself from the day-to-day, so you're not involved in the day-to-day, or retire and retain ownership. How powerful would it be to have a scorecard that you could quickly identify how well your business is running and where the issues are and where you might have to interject yourself? It's a very powerful tool. We start at the leadership team level, and then we trickle this down, this discipline, you trickle it down through the entire organization so that every team has some sort of scorecard. They know exactly where they are day to day, with it, week to week, on how well the business is performing. These are just some examples of, there's a lot more in the booklet of different things we suggest that you can measure on your scorecard. The next tool or discipline in the data component is a measurable. We want everyone in the organization to have some number that they're held accountable for every week. Sometimes the example I give to people is, if you ask someone in your organization, what does a good week look like? What does a good day look like? Sometimes they don't know how to explain it. The measurable, to me, is so powerful that everybody in your organization knows what they're accountable for every week on delivery. It gives them the ability to know what a good week looks like if they've delivered, if they've done their part. So the second discipline is the measurable. So a scorecard, everybody has a number. That's what 100% strong in the data component looks like. So now you have the vision aligned, you have the right people, you're running your business on data. And when you do that, issues, opportunities, new ideas, problems, imperfections, they just come to life. And you want to create an issue list. The discipline is very simple. You want to be able to track all the issues in an organization, have them on a list somewhere so they don't get forgotten, and then you can address them. And you do this using a tool we call IDS. So you have your issues list. The first thing you do is you prioritize the issues you want to do. IDS simply stands for identify, discuss, and solve. And this comes from a discovery that when leadership teams get together, they just briefly identify what they think the issue is. They spend the bulk of the time discussing, a lot of repeating, a lot of politicking, and rarely solve anything. What we teach with IDS is the most important part is to really identify. So you get together in a room, you identify what are the 3 priorities you want to discuss, and you list them. And you start with number 1. And you spend the bulk of your time digging deep into the organization to truly identify what's the root cause. Because a lot of times, what is on the issues list is just a symptom. So you want to dig down and find out what is the real root cause, identify that root cause, so that in your mind, you're thinking to yourself, if we solve this, will it go away forever? Then you briefly discuss. Say it only once. No one repeats themselves. Saying it more than once is politicking. Once everybody's had their say, and then you move on to solve. Solving usually means there's some kind of action someone has to take, a to-do, something has to get done. Ideally, when you scratch that issue off, you move on to number 2, solve that issue, move on to 3, so that every time you get together, you're solving 3, 6, 9 issues at the root, and they go away forever for the greater good of the organization. That's what 100% strong in the issue component looks like. Maintaining a list of issues and getting together as a team, identifying, briefly discussing, and solving those issues. The process component is made out of two parts. One is first documenting a handful of core processes. Those core processes could be a people process, marketing process, a sales process, maybe a couple of operations process, customer service process, an accounting process. Once you've identified those, what are the core processes of your business? You go about simplifying and documenting them. We take an entrepreneurial approach to documenting. Just the 20% that'll get you the 80%. We're not looking to build a 700-page SOP that no one's going to follow, just the key steps in the process. So this is an example of a people process. Just the core steps, that 20% that gets you 80% there so that people will use the tool. And you identify a sales process. What are the steps? And you put these all in a binder, table of contents, all the processes are there. Systemize the predictable so you can humanize the exceptional. That's what we're trying to do. When we work with organizations at first, they feel that too much process is going to stymie creativity. What we find is the opposite is true. When you have good processes, your business is scalable, it's repeatable, and actually more freedom is developed. And that's why I like this quote so much from the founder of Four Seasons. Once you've documented them, the next discipline is followed by all. You have to go and train individuals, teach them the tools, hold them accountable to following the tools. And what that allows you to do is that anywhere you go into business, everybody's doing it the best way, the same way, all the time. As I mentioned, it makes your business scalable, makes your business a lot more fun to run, makes your business predictable. Sometimes we like to call this becomes a franchise model. You can make an acquisition, you can grow the business, you can go into another city, and you already have all the processes in place. Scalability becomes very easy. So you train, you measure, LMA, you lead, you manage, you hold people accountable, and then you update as changes come. So that's the 100% in the process component. If you guys want to we can take a moment here, because I think this is a valuable tool for some of you, and we can work together. I'm just checking my time, make sure we're good on time. Is take a couple of minutes, and then I'd like folks to share in your unique business, what are your core processes? What are the core processes that you either have documented, and if you don't, you feel you should be documented? And then let's share those with the rest of the team, with the rest of the folks on the call. So, of course, we give very generic examples in here for the slide, but what are the core processes in your unique business that you feel need to be documented, that either are or are not documented now, that'll make your business scalable, more predictable?
How about processing invoices and streamlining payment options?
Excellent.
Yeah, making that smooth and easy.
I would say dealing with customer issues as things that occur. How do we respond collectively and our interactions with our customers?
That's a great one. How do you make that a process so it's predictable, so that it's not a different way every time, and customers get different responses? That's very good.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Were you asking me that? How do you do that? Are you saying? I'm sorry.
No, I'm thinking. No, I mean, I think you said you would want to process that, because that is great.
Yes. Yeah.
It makes it.
Yeah.
It makes it a predictable experience for customers,
Yeah.
so they're not
I
different.
always use the example. I own a consulting firm, and I use the example of Chick-fil-A and how no matter what part of the world you go in, you're going to get the same kind of service. It doesn't matter because they have really good systems and how their young people, which most of them are young, greet people and respond to situations. So it's just that that same principle in our businesses.
Yeah, no, that's a great example because they have processes, but they're very simple, very straightforward, so they can have a lot of teenagers working there and they can replicate that all the time. They also do a great job of hiring the right people too, so they have those two components in place for sure.
Absolutely.
Great. Okay, we'll move on. So that's 100% strong in the process component, doing it the same way, the right way, the best way every single time in the organization. This brings us to the traction component. In traction component, there's two tools we use. The first tool is rocks, and we talked about that a little bit when answering the 8 questions on the VTO. What rocks do is we create this 90-day world where every 90 days you've been running in your business like heck. You come up air for a full day, you get together, you look back at how you did the last quarter, and then you set the priorities for the next quarter. What are those 3 to 7 priorities that have to get done for the business the next quarter? And then you identify the ones for the business, and then you set 3 to 7 individual rocks for everybody on the leadership team. And then eventually you trickle down this discipline so that everyone in your organization has at least 1 or 2 or 3 rocks that they're accountable for that quarter, so that you can run in this 90-day world, creating a 90-day world throughout the entire organization. Within that 90-day world, there's a tool we call the meeting pulse. The meeting pulse is based on what we call this 90-day world. The meeting pulse is about having the meetings on the same day, the same time. They start on time, they end on time, so that within the 90-day world, you have you're living this meeting pulse and you're running the same agenda. We use an agenda called the level 10 meeting. And this is briefly how the level 10 meetings. So we start with good news, which is a great way to segue from being in the business, from being in the weeds of the business, to working on the business 1 time a week. And then the next 3 bullet points are a way to check in with each other to see how we're doing. We look at that scorecard I showed you. You identify what is not within the goal. Then you drop that down to your issues list. Then we review all the rocks we've set. Are we on track? Are we off track? If we're off track, let's put it down on the issues list. Then we share customer and employee headlines to make sure we know that how our customers are feeling about us, how our employees are feeling about us. Are there any issues that we need to drop down to the issues list? So after these 15 minutes, we've created this reporting segment where we've identified potential issues. And then we create an accountability piece. We go a to-do list. What were the action items from last week's meeting? Did they get done? Or are they not done? So this is the accountability part of the meeting. 5 minutes, quickly go through that. So that the bulk of the meeting is spent on issues, IDSing. So in a 90-minute level 10 meeting, at least 60 minutes of that meeting are working on resolving issues within the business, solving them at the root, making them go away forever. When we're done, then we conclude. We make sure we recap the to-do list, make sure we're clear on the to-dos. We identify any cascading messages that have to come out of this meeting. And then we rate the meeting to hold each other accountable to always having a good meeting. We rate the meeting on a 1 to 10 scale. That's why we call it a level 10. We want to have 10 rated meetings all the time. So that precious time, this is an expensive meeting. This is a leadership team. This is the highest paid folks of the organization for meeting for 90 minutes once a week. We want to make sure we're getting great value out of that investment once a week. That's what 100% strong in the traction component looks like. EOS is about getting as close to 100%, ideally 80% or better, in the 6 components of the business, using the tools within the system. So that's the EOS model. So some of the foundational tools that we covered today, and we encourage companies, if you decide to do this, if you decide to do this in your organization, either on your own or with an implementer, we always encourage you to start with one, the VTO, get your leadership team together, answer those questions, fill out that 2-page document so that everybody's clear on the vision, everybody's clear on what the traction, what you have to do in 3 years, 1 year, your rocks, your issues list. And then take a step back from the organization, build that accountability chart. Structure first, then define the roles for all the functions, and then put people in the seats. Then implement rocks. Get everybody living in that 90-day world so there's clarity as what are the priorities every 90 days within your organization. Start using the meeting pulse. Start meeting on the same day at the same time. Start on time, end on time, and create the SEM agenda. We recommend the level 10 agenda. You can download it in a different document in the booklet, so it's a tool you can use. And then create that scorecard. Take a first cut at a scorecard. Get with your group and say, what do we need to measure every week so we know how healthy the business is? And I encourage you to list things on the scorecard that you don't even know how to measure yet. Don't worry about if you can measure it. Now, a lot of teams say, well, let's not put that because we don't know how to measure that. No, put it on the scorecard. And then over time, you'll figure out how to measure. Sometimes it'll start on a spreadsheet, and then eventually maybe you can automate it. But what's important is you identify what are the most important things that we need to measure every week so we have a good pulse at the business. We know when things are on track and when things are off track. A couple of resources that are available. As I said, eosworldwide.com. I encourage you to go out to the website. Tons of tools for free, all kinds of information on there, blogs. We're a help-first organization, so we want to give away all the tools for free so that people can use them in their business. So there's a Traction library. There's a series of books. You might have heard of a book called Traction. That was the first book Gino Wickman wrote. And then there's a book called Get a Grip, which is the same content, but in a fable, a storytell. There's a process book. There's a people book. There's all kinds of books. There's also the ability to subscribe to Basecamp, which gives you more access. That's a monthly subscription. So some companies that want to implement on themselves, they'll subscribe to Basecamp. A lot more resources, videos, and other things that help companies there. And then, of course, there's folks like myself, EOS implementers. There's 700 plus of us around the world. We're in all cities. And if you want to meet an implementer in another city, you can reach out to me and I can connect you with people. You can also go out to the website and there's a matching system to help you find an implementer if that's the way you want to look at it. So this is what I have for you today. A couple of final thoughts. Our creed is choose a system. We teach EOS. We help implement EOS, but we encourage companies, if it's not EOS, pick a system, use it, commit to it. Get what you want out of your business. The systems will allow you. Simplifying and systematizing your business will let you get what you want out of your business. Just a couple of quotes from people that have run it. I won't read them to you. Guys can read them on the screen there. So that's all I have for you today. Dan, if you want to unshare or I can do that on my end, whichever is easier for you. And then I'll open the floor to any questions. I wanted to leave ample time at the end for questions or discussion.
All right. Oh, yep, I am unmuted. All right. Does anybody have any questions for Sam here?
Sam, how long have you been doing the EOS thing?
So I've been doing EOS since 2015. I used it in my business. I've been as an implementer for the last year. So just a quick, we ran our business on EOS. We discovered EOS as we came out of Chapter 11 bankruptcy, which was, as you would imagine, horrible for our employees, our customers, our vendors. And when we came out of Chapter 11, EOS was introduced to us, and we realized that's what we were missing. So I was the integrator for the business. We
Okay.
sold the business in 2019. I went to work for the private equity firm, and then I decided that my real passion was this, helping organizations and helping entrepreneurs. So
Yeah,
that's
so
what
you lived it. You lived it. Yeah.
I lived it. It was game changer for us. You know,
Yeah.
I love it,
Yeah.
and that's why I do this now. I mean, you know, it's
Yeah. I've had experience with it. I find it to be very consistently effective when it's done with a professional implementer like you. It really, I've seen people try to do self implementation and they really only get so far. And then when they can step up and bring in the real, you know, professional, it just makes it so much more effective and more just worthwhile, you know. So I'm a big fan.
great. Thank you.
Hey, Sam, it's Patrika.
Hi, Patricia.
I also can give accolade and credibility to the traction. After COVID hit, it was a huge wake-up call and a huge pivotal moment in my life. And long story short, we hired on a traction coach, and it truly made all the difference in the world. We stuck together for a year because she changed her own direction, and so we still use the scorecard system. And I cannot begin to tell you how many people give us pat on the backs because we know our numbers. And it tells a story, and I'm just so thrilled for it. So I'm grateful for what we learned in that year, but here we are. That was here we are going into 2 years later, whatever. And we use it, but over the last year and a half, we lost sight of continuing to leverage it to the intent that it should be used. So my question to you would be, do you have to have a certain revenue or a certain size company for you individually or other implementers to work with versus, you know, like a million or less, or 2 to 5 million or 10 million in revenue? I was curious about that.
No, there isn't a revenue number. Our target market, when we look at the size demographic, is typically 10 to 250 employees. We do work with organizations that are smaller, and we work with organizations that are much larger. But typically it's 10 to 250, but it could be any number. Revenue doesn't really matter from being able to use.
Yeah, when I was looking at it in late 20, that was part of the discussions that I had, was the revenue number. So now here we are, fast forward, it looks like it's more focused on 10 plus or any size, which is encouraging. So I'll tap into that, and that's great. So thank you for sharing today, because guys, I'm telling you, it truly does make a difference. And the other gentleman is right. If you try to do it on your own, sometimes you get back into the weeds and all of a sudden it's shelved again.
Yeah. Great. And I don't have the chat open. I see in the chat because it's hard for me. I can't chat and do it. So David, if you can handle any requests for contact, I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Yep. I went ahead and put your contact information in the chat. And for those of you who did not get a copy of the workbook, I put several copies of it in the chat, but just put it in the chat if you did not get it, and I'll post it again.
Yeah.
So
Right.
let me just make a quick comment. So Sam and I worked together like several years ago, and all of the things that he's talked about today, we did, but not in a quantifiable kind of state. It was like, you know, pieces here, pieces there. And Sam was kind of the key leader in doing that in the commercial interiors company that we were together. And then we had, you know, obviously went our separate ways. And then we came back together several months back, and he was telling me about some of the adventures, you know, going into these companies and having these discussions. And so I just want to touch on briefly The one story that he gave us was really when he went in, and you're talking about the right people in the right seat, and do they get it? Do they want it? Those discussions are extremely difficult to have when you are trying to do it yourself. It's like trying to represent yourself in a court of law. You know, you really want to have an attorney representing you or guiding that discussion and direction. And so Sam's story to me was really interesting, and it gets pretty intense when you're trying to have those real deep dive, especially when the CEO realizes he's not in the right seat. And so those are hard discussions to have. Anyway, Sam's information is in there, and you know, anybody has any additional questions, definitely open.
Yeah, I'll you know, when I mentioned when the question came of size, the most important target market segment for us is the psychographic. The leadership team has to be open and honest and vulnerable and willing to get comfortable with the uncomfortable. Because if that doesn't exist, obviously you can't do it yourself if that doesn't exist. And it won't even work with an implementer. So when all of us, implementers, myself, when we meet with companies that are interested, is we want to make sure that exists. Because if it doesn't, we jokingly say as implementers, I can't want it more than you want it. You have to want it. So that's a key component. And that's where EOS has great success, is when that leadership team is willing to get comfortable with the uncomfortable.
Right on. Well, Sam, thank you so much for your presentation today. We do want to be respectful of everybody's time, as we are right up on the minute. So I just want to remind everybody before we go that we are having our Network with the Nations on the first Thursday of every month. I'm sorry, first Wednesday of every month. The third Wednesday of every month, we will be having our Sales Mastery. And on the fourth Wednesday of every month, we, of course, have our Focus Forum or Speaker Series, whatever you want to call it. We look forward to having you at the next. Thank you for joining us. And yeah, thank you once again, Sam. Thank you, David, for introducing us. All right.
Absolutely.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for participating.
Have a great and successful week, y'all. Take care.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.